The invasion begins. The skies over Earth darkened as the massive ships of the Krell Empire descended through the atmosphere. Humanity, for all its technological advancements and military might, was caught completely off guard. The invasion began not with a bang, but with an eerie silence that swept across the globe. Sarah Chen stood on the roof of her apartment building in New York City, her eyes fixed on the looming shapes that blotted out the sun. As a former Special Forces operative, she had seen her fair share of combat, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. The alien vessels, sleek and obsidian, seemed to absorb all light around them. Within hours, the world's major cities were engulfed in chaos. The Krell's energy weapons tore through Earth's defenses like paper, reducing military installations to smoldering ruins. Governments crumbled, communications networks failed, and humanity found itself on the brink of extinction. Sarah's military training kicked in as she navigated the panicked streets. She knew that survival would require more than just hiding. It would take organization, strategy, and an unbreakable will. As she helped fellow survivors find shelter, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. There had to be a way to fight back. The Krell Empire, as humanity would soon learn, was a vast interstellar civilization that had conquered countless worlds. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's, with weapons that could vaporize entire city blocks and shields that rendered them virtually invulnerable to conventional attacks. But it was their foot soldiers that truly struck fear into the hearts of humans. Clad in biomechanical armor that seemed to shift and adapt to its surroundings, the Krell warriors were a terrifying sight. They moved with inhuman speed and precision, their multiple limbs wielding an array of deadly weapons. Sarah witnessed firsthand the devastation they could wreak as she led a group of survivors through the ruins of Manhattan. "Stay low and quiet," she whispered to the group, her eyes scanning the debris-strewn street. A Krell patrol passed nearby, their armor's sensors sweeping the area. Sarah held her breath, willing the aliens to move on. It was in these tense moments that she began to formulate a plan. As the days turned into weeks, pockets of resistance began to form around the world. Sarah, drawing on her military experience, became a natural leader for the survivors in New York. She organized scavenging parties, set up secure communication channels, and began to study the Krell's patterns and weaknesses. "They may have superior technology," Sarah told her growing band of fighters, "but we have something they don't: an unbreakable spirit and a home worth fighting for." It was during a daring raid on a Krell supply depot that Sarah made a crucial discovery. The aliens' armor, while incredibly advanced, had a vulnerability to certain electromagnetic frequencies. This knowledge, spread through the resistance network, gave humanity its first real advantage. But the Krell were not about to let their conquest slip away so easily. As human resistance grew stronger and more organized, the aliens unleashed a new terror upon Earth: the Phantom Squads. These elite units of Krell soldiers were equipped with cloaking technology that made them nearly invisible to the naked eye. Sarah's first encounter with a Phantom Squad almost ended in disaster. Her team was ambushed during a reconnaissance mission, and half of her fighters were cut down before they even realized they were under attack. It was only Sarah's quick thinking and combat instincts that saved the rest. "Thermal vision," she shouted, tossing specialized goggles to her remaining squad members. The Phantom Squad's cloaking may have fooled normal sight, but it couldn't mask their heat signatures. This adaptation allowed Sarah and her team to turn the tables, taking down the alien assassins in a fierce firefight. As news of this victory spread, Sarah became a symbol of hope for the resistance. Her tactics and leadership inspired others to take up arms against the invaders. Slowly but surely, humanity began to push back against the Krell occupation. But the aliens were far from defeated. Their response to this growing threat would test humanity's resolve to its very limits. As Sarah stood atop the ruins of the Empire State Building, surveying the battleground that New York had become, she knew that the real war was just beginning. "We've bloodied their nose," she told her second-in-command, a former NYPD officer named Mike Rodriguez. but now they're going to hit back with everything they've got. Mike nodded grimly. So what's our next move? Sarah's eyes narrowed as she spotted a new wave of Krell ships entering the atmosphere. We gather every fighter, every scrap of technology we can salvage, and we prepare for the fight of our lives. The Krell thought they could break us, but they've only made us stronger. As the sun set on another day of occupation, Sarah Chen and the human resistance steeled themselves for the battles to come. The Krell Empire had unleashed its might upon Earth, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson. When pushed to the brink, humanity's potential for greatness knows no bounds. The invasion had begun, but the war for Earth's survival was far from over. And in the crucible of this interstellar conflict, heroes would rise, sacrifices would be made, and the true strength of the human spirit would be revealed. The rise of the resistance. The dawn broke over a changed New York City, its once proud skyline now a jagged silhouette of destruction. Sarah Chen stood at the entrance of an underground bunker, watching as her team of resistance fighters filed in after another night of guerrilla operations against the Krell occupiers. "Good work out there," she said, clasping shoulders and nodding to each fighter as they passed. "Every supply line we disrupt, every piece of intel we gather, brings us one step closer to taking back our world." Over the past months, Sarah had transformed from a lone survivor into the linchpin of Earth's resistance. Her tactical acumen and unwavering determination had turned a scattered group of refugees into a formidable fighting force. But the cost had been high, and the road ahead looked even more treacherous. Inside the bunker, a global network of resistance cells convened via a cobbled-together communication system. Sarah took her place at the head of a makeshift war room, surrounded by monitors showing grainy feeds from around the world. "The Krell are adapting to our hit-and-run tactics," a resistance leader from Tokyo reported, his face grim on the flickering screen. "They've started using predictive algorithms to anticipate our movements." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with countermeasures. "Then we change the game. We need to be more unpredictable, more daring. It's time to take the fight to them in ways they can't compute." Over the next weeks, Sarah implemented a new strategy. Instead of solely focusing on military targets, the resistance began to undermine the very infrastructure the Krell were building to solidify their control of Earth. Sabotage missions targeted their communication relays. EMP devices were used to short out their advanced machinery, and carefully planned disinformation campaigns sowed confusion among the alien ranks. The Resistance's boldest move came when Sarah led a team to infiltrate a Krell research facility. Intel suggested that the aliens were developing a new weapon, one that could potentially wipe out what remained of human civilization. "This is our chance to show them that Earth isn't just another conquest," Sarah told her strike team as they geared up. "We're fighting for our home, our future. Failure is not an option." The mission was a knife's edge of tension and precision. Sarah's team moved through the facility like ghosts, disabling security systems and gathering crucial data. But as they reached the heart of the complex, they encountered something that would change the course of the war: the Phantom Squads. These weren't the same cloak units they had faced before. The Krell had evolved their elite assassins into something far deadlier. The new Phantom Squads seemed to phase in and out of reality itself, their movements defying the laws of physics. "Fall back," Sarah shouted as the air around them shimmered with lethal energy. Her team scrambled for cover, but two of her best fighters were cut down in seconds, their bodies disintegrating into ash. It was only Sarah's quick thinking and a hastily improvised EMP blast that allowed the rest of the team to escape. As they fled the facility, the weight of what they'd witnessed hung heavy on their shoulders. Back at the Resistance headquarters, Sarah pored over the data they'd managed to steal. What she found chilled her to the core. The Krell weren't just developing a new weapon. They were terraforming Earth, slowly altering its atmosphere to be more suitable for their physiology. Humanity was running out of time. "We need to think bigger," Sarah announced to the Global Resistance Network. "These localized strikes aren't enough. We need to unite, to pool our resources and knowledge." It's time for a coordinated worldwide offensive. The plan that emerged was audacious, bordering on insane. Simultaneous attacks on major Krell strongholds across the globe, culminating in an assault on their primary command ship in low Earth orbit. It would require every scrap of salvage technology, every ounce of human ingenuity, and a level of cooperation unprecedented in human history. As preparations for the global offensive ramped up, Sarah found herself working alongside some of Earth's brightest minds. Engineers repurposed Krell technology. Physicists unraveled the secrets of their faster-than-light communications, and hackers probed for weaknesses in alien computer systems. But the Krell were not idle. Their phantom squads began targeting resistance leaders around the world. Each day brought news of another cell going dark, another crucial ally lost to the ghostly assassins. Sarah knew they were racing against time. The resistance needed a breakthrough, something to level the playing field against the phantom squads and the Krell's overwhelming technological superiority. That breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Amelia Zhao, a quantum physicist working out of a hidden lab in the Australian outback, made contact with the resistance. She claimed to have developed a prototype device that could disrupt the Phantom Squad's phase-shifting abilities. "It's not perfect," Dr. Zhao explained over a secure channel, her eyes alight with cautious hope, "but it could give us the edge we need in close-quarters combat." Sarah didn't hesitate. "I'm coming to you. Whatever you need to make this work, you'll have it." The journey to Australia was fraught with danger. Krell patrols seemed to be everywhere, and twice Sarah's transport had to go to ground to avoid detection. But the prize at the end was worth the risk. Dr. Zhao's lab was a marvel of human perseverance, a fusion of scavenged alien tech and Earth ingenuity hidden beneath the red desert sands. The device she presented to Sarah looked deceptively simple, a wrist-mounted emitter that produced a localized field of quantum instability. "It forces the Phantom Squads into a single-phase state," Dr. Zhao explained, "rendering them as solid and vulnerable as any other Krell soldier." Sarah strapped on the prototype, feeling the weight of humanity's hopes on her arm. How do we test it? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Alarms blared throughout the facility. The Krell had found them. "Looks like we'll be field testing after all," Sarah said grimly, readying her weapon as the first shimmer of Phantom Squad phase shifting became visible. The battle that followed would become legendary in the annals of the Resistance. Sarah, armed with Dr. Zhao's device, stood her ground against the Krell's most fearsome warriors. For the first time, the Phantom Squads found themselves unable to rely on their greatest advantage. Sarah moved with fluid grace, her combat training melding seamlessly with the new technology. Where once the Phantom Squads had been untouchable wraiths, now they fell to precisely aimed shots and hand-to-hand combat maneuvers. As the last of the Phantom Squad lay defeated, Sarah turned to Dr. Zhao, who had watched the battle in awe. "How quickly can you produce more of these?" His slow smile spread across the scientist's face. "With the right resources, we could arm every resistance cell within a month." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with the possibilities this new technology opened up. "Then that's our new priority. We've just leveled the playing field." As news of the successful defense against the Phantom Squads spread through resistance channels, a new sense of hope began to take hold. Humanity had proven that even the Krell's most advanced warriors could be defeated. Sarah Chen, standing amidst the aftermath of the battle, felt the tide of the war shifting. The Resistance had scored its first major victory, but she knew this was just the beginning. The Krell would retaliate with even greater force, unleashing horrors yet unseen upon the embattled Earth. But for the first time since the invasion began, Sarah allowed herself a moment of genuine optimism. Humanity had shown its resilience, its ability to adapt and overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. As she looked out over the vast Australian desert, Sarah Chen made a silent vow. No matter what the Krell threw at them next, Earth would stand ready. The Resistance had risen, and the real battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The Krell unleashed the Void Walkers. The brief moment of triumph following the Resistance's victory against the Phantom Squads was short-lived. As Sarah Chen and her global network of fighters prepared to capitalize on their newfound advantage, the Krell Empire unveiled a terror that would push humanity to the very brink of extinction: the Void Walkers. Reports began flooding in from resistance cells worldwide. Entire strongholds were being wiped out, leaving behind nothing but eerie silence and inexplicable distortions in the fabric of reality. At first, Sarah dismissed these accounts as exaggerations born of fear and exhaustion. But as the pattern repeated across continents, a chilling realization set in. "They're not just soldiers," Dr. Zhou said, her voice trembling as she analyzed the data streaming in. "The Void Walkers are something else, something that shouldn't exist in our universe." Sarah stood in the war room, surrounded by screens flickering with desperate messages from the few survivors who had encountered these new horrors. "Explain it to me, Doctor. What are we dealing with?" Dr. Zhou's fingers flew over her keyboard, pulling up simulations and theoretical models. Based on the data, the Void Walkers appear to be entities that exist partially outside our dimension. They don't just phase like the Phantom Squads. They manipulate the very fabric of space-time around them. The implications were staggering. The quantum disruptors that had been so effective against the Phantom Squads were useless against beings that could simply step sideways out of reality. Conventional weapons passed through them harmlessly, and even nuclear strikes in areas where they were spotted had no effect. Sarah felt the weight of countless lives on her shoulders as she processed this information. How do we fight something we can't even touch? The answer, it seemed, lay in pushing human science and ingenuity to its absolute limits. Dr. Zhao and a team of Earth's remaining physicists began working around the clock, trying to understand the nature of the Void Walkers and find some way to counter them. Meanwhile, Sarah focused on keeping the resistance alive. She implemented new protocols, constantly moving bases and splitting teams into smaller, more mobile units. But it wasn't enough. The Void Walkers were relentless, methodical in their extermination of human resistance. Weeks turned into months, and humanity found itself pushed further and further to the edge. Major cities that had once been bastions of the resistance fell silent. The global communication network that Sarah had worked so hard to establish became a grim roll call of losses. It was during this darkest hour that an unexpected breakthrough came. A young prodigy, barely out of her teens, approached Sarah with an idea so radical it bordered on madness. "We can't fight them in our reality," the girl, Zoe, explained, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and excitement. "So we need to bring them fully into ours." The plan was to create a device that would generate a localized field of hyperdense space-time, forcing the Void Walkers to fully materialize in our dimension. It was theoretical, dangerous, and would require resources the Resistance barely had. But it was also the first glimmer of hope they'd had in months. Sarah made the call. Every remaining Resistance cell was to divert all resources to this project. It was a gamble that could leave them vulnerable, but the alternative was slow, certain annihilation. As work on the reality anchor progressed, Sarah led a series of desperate holding actions against the Krell forces. Every day was a battle not just for survival, but to buy time for Zoe and her team to complete their work. The losses were staggering. Sarah watched friends and comrades fall to the Void Walkers, their bodies twisted in ways that defied comprehension. Each death hardened her resolve, fueling a determination that bordered on obsession. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of retreat and loss, Zoe announced that the reality anchor was ready for testing. The device, a massive construction of salvaged Krell tech and human innovation, hummed with potential. "One shot," Sarah said, looking at the weary faces of her team. "We've got one shot to make this work." The plan was simple in theory, suicidal in execution. Sarah would lead a small team to deploy the reality anchor in the heart of a major Krell stronghold. If it worked, it would force any Void Walkers in the area into our reality, making them vulnerable. If it failed, well, humanity didn't have much left to lose. The insertion was a masterclass in stealth and precision. Sarah's team moved through the ruins of what had once been downtown Los Angeles, now a twisted landscape of Krell architecture and dimensional anomalies. The reality anchor, compact but heavy, was a constant reminder of the stakes. They reached the deployment zone, a vast plaza that had once been the center of human governance, now serving as a nexus for Krell operations. As Sarah's team began setting up the device, the air around them began to shimmer and distort. "They know we're here," Sarah's second-in-command whispered, his voice tight with tension. Sarah nodded grimly. "Doesn't matter. We finished the job." The Voidwalkers materialized around them, their forms defying description, a nightmare blend of angles and voids that hurt the mind to look upon. Sarah's team opened fire, but their weapons might as well have been spitting air for all the good they did. "Zoe, we need that anchor online now," Sarah shouted into her comm as she dodged a reality-warping attack that left a member of her team twisted into an impossible shape. The young scientist's voice came back, strained but determined. 30 seconds. Just hold on." Those 30 seconds were an eternity. Sarah watched in horror as her team was decimated, their bodies and minds broken by forces beyond human comprehension. She stood alone, the last line of defense between the Voidwalkers and humanity's final hope. Just as a Voidwalker reached for her, its form rippling with otherworldly energy, the reality anchor flared to life. A wave of distortion swept outward, and suddenly the air was filled with the screams of beings forced fully into a reality they were never meant to inhabit. Sarah didn't hesitate. With practiced precision, she opened fire on the now vulnerable Voidwalkers. Each shot found its mark, and for the first time, humanity's weapons had an effect on these interdimensional horrors. But the victory was bittersweet. As the last Voidwalker fell, Sarah stood alone in the devastated plaza, surrounded by the bodies of her team and the twisted forms of their enemies. The reality anchor had worked, but at a terrible cost. As reinforcements arrived and the implications of their success began to sink in, Sarah allowed herself a moment of grief for those lost. But there was no time for prolonged mourning. The Krell would regroup, adapt, and strike back harder than ever. Sarah tapped her comm, connecting to the Global Resistance Network. "This is Chen. The reality anchor was a success. Begin mass production immediately. We finally got a way to hurt these bastards." As she looked out over the ruins of Los Angeles, now littered with the corpses of beings from beyond our universe, Sarah Chen felt a familiar fire burning in her chest. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but for the first time in months, humanity had a fighting chance. The Voidwalkers had been their deadliest threat yet, but Earth had risen to the challenge. As Sarah began coordinating the next phase of their counteroffensive, she couldn't help but wonder, what other horrors did the Krell Empire have in store? And would humanity's ingenuity and spirit be enough to overcome them? The war for Earth's survival raged on, with neither side willing to concede defeat. The next battle loomed on the horizon, promising to be the most brutal yet. Humanity's secret weapon. The aftermath of the Los Angeles battle marked a turning point in the war against the Krell. With the reality anchors now in production, humanity finally had a means to combat the Voidwalkers. But Sarah Chen knew that this advantage wouldn't last long. The Krell had proven time and again their ability to adapt and overcome. As Sarah coordinated global resistance efforts from a hidden bunker beneath the ruins of Chicago, an unexpected discovery would change the course of the war entirely. Dr. Amelia Zhao burst into the command center, her eyes wild with excitement. "Sarah, you need to see this. Now." Intrigued by the scientist's urgency, Sarah followed her to a makeshift lab where a team of researchers huddled around a glowing artifact. The object, roughly the size of a basketball, pulsed with an otherworldly energy that made the air around it shimmer. "We found it buried deep beneath the Gobi Desert," Dr. Zhao explained. "Carbon dating puts it at over 100,000 years old, but the technology, it's far beyond even the Krell." Sarah approached cautiously, feeling a strange resonance as she neared the artifact. What is it? Dr. Zhao shook her head. We're not entirely sure. But watch this. The scientist carefully placed her hand on the artifact's surface. Instantly, holographic symbols erupted into the air, forming complex equations and diagrams that Sarah couldn't begin to comprehend. It's some kind of database, Dr. Zhou continued. But more than that. It seems to interface directly with the user's mind. The knowledge it contains, Sarah, it's vast. And I think it holds the key to defeating the Krell. Sarah's mind raced with the implications. If this technology predates the Krell by millennia, then they're not the first advanced civilization to visit Earth, Dr. Zhou finished. And whoever left this behind might have been powerful enough to challenge even the Krell Empire. With cautious optimism, Sarah authorized a team to study the artifact round the clock. As days passed, tantalizing bits of information emerged. The artifact contained blueprints for weapons and defenses far beyond current human or Krell technology. But more importantly, it hinted at a fundamental weakness in the Krell's physiology, one that could potentially turn the tide of the war. However, fully deciphering the artifact's secrets proved challenging. The vast amount of information it contained was overwhelming human minds, causing severe mental strain and even physical side effects in those who interfaced with it for too long. We need more time, Dr. Zhao pleaded. If we can just crack its encryption, we could. An alarm blared through the bunker, cutting her off. Sarah's comm crackled to life with a frantic message. Multiple Krell warships inbound. They've found us. Sarah's training kicked in immediately. Evacuate all non-essential personnel. Dr. Zhao, grab that artifact. We're moving out. As chaos erupted around them, Sarah made a split-second decision that would alter the course of her life and the war. She placed her hand on the artifact, bracing herself for the flood of information. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. Sarah's mind exploded with knowledge. Secrets of the universe, advanced physics, and glimpses of civilizations long past. But amidst the torrent of information, she saw something that made her blood run cold. The true nature of the Krell Empire and their plans for Earth. Gasping, Sarah pulled her hand away. Dr. Zhao caught her as she stumbled, concern etched on her face. Sarah, what did you see? Everything, Sarah whispered. I saw everything. There was no time to process the information. The bunker shook with the first impacts of Krell weaponry. Sarah shook her head, forcing herself to focus on the immediate threat. Get that artifact to the escape shuttle, she ordered. I'll hold them off. Dr. Zhao hesitated. But, go, Sarah snapped. That thing is our only hope. Protected at all costs. As Dr. Zhao and her team fled with the artifact, Sarah turned to face the oncoming Krell forces. But something had changed. The knowledge from the artifact swirled in her mind, and suddenly the alien technology around her didn't seem so incomprehensible. With newfound understanding, Sarah interfaced with the bunker's defense systems. Her fingers flew over control panels, reprogramming and optimizing in ways she never thought possible. As Krell soldiers breached the outer defenses, they found themselves facing weaponry that seemed to anticipate their every move. Sarah fought with a ferocity born of desperation and newfound knowledge. She held the line, buying precious time for the evacuation. But even with her enhanced abilities, she knew she couldn't hold out forever. Just as the last shuttle was preparing for launch, a squad of Void Walkers phased into the command center. Sarah faced them, her mind racing with calculations and probabilities she didn't fully understand. In that moment, something clicked. Sarah reached out, not with her hands, but with her mind. She felt the fabric of reality around her, sensed the dimensional rifts the Void Walkers used to move between worlds. And with a thought, she closed them. The Void Walkers screamed in a frequency that shattered glass and ruptured eardrums. Trapped fully in our reality, they were suddenly vulnerable. Sarah didn't hesitate. She opened fire, her shots guided by an almost precognitive sense of where they would be. In seconds, it was over. The Void Walkers lay dead, and Sarah stood amidst the carnage, her mind reeling from what she had just accomplished. A voice crackled over her comm. "Commander Chen, we're ready for dust-off. Where are you?" Sarah looked around the destroyed bunker, at the bodies of Krell soldiers and the smoldering remains of their advanced technology. She knew, with a certainty that scared her, that she now held the power to turn the tide of this war. "I'm on my way," she replied. "And tell Dr. Zhou to prep the artifact. We've got work to do." As Sarah raced towards the waiting shuttle, her mind was already formulating plans. The knowledge from the artifact was incomplete, fragmented, but it was enough. Enough to give humanity a fighting chance. Enough to take the war to the Krell in ways they could never anticipate. The shuttle lifted off just as Krell reinforcements swarmed the ruined bunker. As Earth fell away beneath them, Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. The Krell thought they had dealt a crippling blow to the Resistance. They had no idea that they had just created their own worst nightmare. Humanity now had a secret weapon, and her name was Sarah Chen. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and this time, the odds were shifting in humanity's favor. The tables turn. The Resistance's hidden base on Mars buzzed with nervous energy. Months had passed since Sarah Chen's transformation, and in that time, the tide of the war had shifted dramatically. Humanity, once on the brink of extinction, now stood poised to launch a counteroffensive that would decide the fate of not just Earth, but the entire solar system. Sarah stood before a holographic display of the Krell mothership, her eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intelligence. The knowledge from the ancient artifact had changed her, enhancing her cognitive abilities far beyond human limits. But it had also shown her the true stakes of this conflict, a truth she had shared only with her innermost circle. "The Krell aren't just conquerors," Sarah explained to the assembled war council. "They're harvesters. They seed primitive worlds with their technology, wait for the indigenous species to advance, and then swoop in to steal that evolution for themselves. Earth isn't just a conquest. It's a farm they've been cultivating for millennia." The revelation had galvanized the Resistance. The knowledge that humanity's entire history had been manipulated by these cosmic parasites fueled a rage that burned hotter than any sun. Dr. Zhou, who had become Sarah's closest confidant, stepped forward. "We've reverse-engineered much of the Krell's technology, using the artifact's knowledge. Our ships are ready, our weapons primed. But Sarah, are you sure about this final step? The risks." Sarah cut her off with a raised hand. "The risks are necessary. To beat them, we need to think like them, fight like them." She turned to address the council. "What I'm about to do, it may seem like I'm becoming the very thing we're fighting against, but I need you to trust me. This is our only shot." With that, Sarah retreated to a specially prepared chamber. Inside, she interfaced directly with a modified version of the artifact, allowing its ancient knowledge to flow directly into her neural pathways. The process was agonizing, pushing her transformed mind to its limits and beyond. Hours later, Sarah emerged. Her eyes glowed with an ethereal light, and the air around her seemed to ripple with barely contained energy. She had become something more than human, a hybrid of flesh and cosmic knowledge that the Krell could never have anticipated. The assault on the Krell mothership began at dawn. A fleet of retrofitted human ships, augmented with technology centuries beyond their time, tore through the Krell's outer defenses. At the helm of the lead vessel, Sarah directed the battle with preternatural skill, her enhanced mind processing battlefield data faster than any computer. But the real battle began when they breached the mothership itself. Sarah led a strike team through corridors that twisted in ways that defied Euclidean geometry. Krell defenders fell before weapons that phased in and out of reality, guided by Sarah's newfound mastery over dimensional energies. As they fought their way to the ship's core, Sarah felt a presence pushing against her mind. The collective consciousness of the Krell Empire, finally recognizing the threat she posed. "You are an anomaly," a voice boomed in her head. "A primitive species should not possess such knowledge." Sarah smiled grimly as she deflected a barrage of energy bolts with a thought. "We're full of surprises. The final chamber was a vast, organic space that pulsed with malevolent life. At its center floated a being of pure energy, the Krell Overmind, the guiding intelligence behind our entire empire. You think you can challenge us? The Overmind's thoughts crashed against Sarah's mental defenses. We have harvested 1,000,000 worlds. Your species is nothing but cattle to us. Sarah stood her ground, her team forming a protective circle around her. Maybe so, but we're cattle that learned to bite back. What followed was a battle fought on planes of existence beyond human comprehension. Sarah's enhanced mind clashed with the Overmind's vast intellect, while around them, reality itself warped and twisted. The resistance fighters could only watch in awe and terror as Sarah, glowing with power, seemed to fight an invisible force. Blood trickled from her nose, her eyes blazed with unearthly fire, but she did not yield. In that cosmic struggle, Sarah unleashed everything the artifact had given her. She wielded energies that could unmake stars, twisted probability itself to her will, and dove deep into the quantum foam of reality. And then, with a scream that shattered dimensional barriers, it was over. The Overmind, the guiding intelligence that had directed the Krell Empire for eons, winked out of existence. Without its control, the entire Krell fleet fell into disarray. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and the once unstoppable armada began to tear itself apart. Sarah collapsed, caught by Dr. Zhao, who had fought her way to her friend's side. Did we win? Sarah gasped, her voice weak, but her eyes clear for the first time in months. Dr. Zhao looked at the screen showing Krell ships falling out of orbit, their threat nullified. Yes, she whispered. We won. In the days that followed, humanity began the long process of reclaiming their world. The knowledge Sarah had gained allowed for rapid advancements in technology, medicine, and space travel. Earth, once a backward planet ripe for harvesting, was now poised to become a major power in the galaxy. But victory had come at a cost. The alien knowledge that had allowed Sarah to defeat the Krell was fading, its purpose fulfilled. She found herself becoming more human with each passing day, the cosmic awareness slipping away like a half-remembered dream. One evening, as she watched the sun set over a recovering Earth, Dr. Zhao joined her. Any regrets? The scientist asked. Sarah shook her head. We did what we had to do. We survived. We evolved. She turned to her friend, a smile playing on her lips. And now we get to decide our own future. As night fell on a free Earth, Sarah Chen, once a simple soldier, then humanity's secret weapon, and now just a woman again, looked to the stars. The Krell were defeated, but the galaxy was vast and full of wonders and terrors alike. Humanity had proven its worth in the crucible of invasion. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to take their place among the cosmos. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Sarah knew one thing for certain: they would face them together, as one species united by the unbreakable spirit that had seen them through their darkest hour. The war was over. The next great adventure was just beginning.